set this patient up with all of the monitoring equipment at this time. So what we need to do first is we would be doing a blood pressure cuff. We do not actually have a blood pressure cuff here that we can apply, but what we would be doing is we would be looking for the dog's metacarpus. So we would be shaving the metacarpus, and we would be doing the palmar vein. So we would be shaving right here, 1 to 2 inches. And then we would be making sure that it is bilateral with the vein, only doing 1 to 2 millimeter adjustments as needed, so that way you get the reading. You want to make sure that you're really listening when you're placing that. If you have one that does have a sound, you want to make sure that you're listening while you're placing it to make sure that you can actually hear a heartbeat on there. Then what we want to be doing is we want to be applying our esophageal stethoscope. So we have our esophageal stethoscope here. We want to pre-measure to the 5th rib. So we want to make sure, you can go for the xiphoid process if you wish, and then you can count up, or you can count from the top of the ribs and down. So we're going to go and count this way. So this is about where the patient's 5th rib would be, right about here. So we want to make sure that we're measuring the esophageal stethoscope. Make sure that you're not actually touching your patient with the esophageal stethoscope, but you're still measuring. So this patient is going to need to be about to here. So we're going to insert the esophageal stethoscope. So inserting the stethoscope here now. Making sure you have a mental mark of where you measured to. That's about where we measured to. We want to make sure we do not go further, because if we go any further than that, then we're going to be entering the cardia. We want to be at the base of the heart, but if we go any further, then what can happen is gastric reflexes or gastric substances can be entered into the esophagus and cause irritation to the patient. So we want to make sure that we're not passing the cardia. So now what we need to be doing is we need to be placing our SOP2 monitor. So what we have here is a clip. So we want to make sure that our patient's tongue is very wet, and when we place the clip for the SOP2 pulsometer onto the patient's tongue. So we're going to place it right there. So it's placed onto the patient's tongue there. So now what's going to happen is light's going to go from one side of this probe to the other through the capillary bed that we have here. It is going to read differently when it's picking up hemoglobin that is saturated with oxygen compared to when it's picking up hemoglobin that has not been saturated with oxygen. So it's really reading how much saturated hemoglobin that we do have in the capillary bed. There's also going to be a lot of arterioles in the capillary bed, and it's going to pick up on the patient's heartbeat through that. We want to make sure that it is again wet, so we do have a proper reading. And we also want to make sure here too that we do not have outside light reflecting and causing interference here, and we don't have any wires tangled. So that goes over everything here as far as our equipment for monitoring.